Hello there. It's Most Things Kenobi. This is the podcast you're looking for.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Most Things Kenobi, a podcast about Obi-Wan Kenobi and all things Star Wars. I'm your host, LeeAnn.
And I'm your host, LeeAnn.
Ooh, okay, so today we're discussing the strange sisterly bond, the biological joining of the Kryze sisters, Bo-Katan and Satine.
Yes.
How they are sisters, we don't know, but we're going to discuss that today.
You don't think it's ever been said, right, in canon?
Not really. I mean, we know they're sisters. We know they're from the same clan. We know that they both hold positions in Mandalore, I guess we'll say. Mm-hmm. But how in the are they from the same tree? They are two very different breeds of apple from the tree of Kryze.
Yes. Bo has never been my favorite character, although I do like her quite a bit in The Mandalorian.
She's definitely grown on me. A large part of this is due to Katie Sackhoff because
yes,
it's just implied she seems to be a well-spoken individual. She has a cool voice. She does the character role well, always has, from the Clone Wars all the way to the live action of her character from the Clone Wars.
Yeah, I've loved her since Battlestar Galactica. She was so great in that show. And just a little side note, I loved that in the latest episode of The Mandalorian. She got to pilot like a in that episode. I was just like, oh
my God.
It's like Starbuck all over again.
That whole opening scene of last week's episode, which I think is the third episode of The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At the time of this recording. So that was really something. That was really cool.
Yeah.
The ship, the tactics, the confidence,
yes.
You know. We always see her combat style and her fighting, but piloting is something I like very much to watch her do.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Plus, I love me a good TIE fighter.
I know.
Let alone 10 of them.
You got a lot in the last episode. You had a whole squadron of them.
And was this episode the first time that we've ever heard the word Kryze uttered in live action?
I don't know. I feel like they might have said her name. She said her...
Last season?
I think she said it when she first meets Din. I think she says
Okay.
She comes from Clan Kryze or something like that.
Okay.
He wants to know who she is and where she's from, and she kind of like uses that as a point of pride, but then he doesn't take her seriously because she takes her helmet off.
Right. It's a whole thing.
Don't even get me started on that whole thing.
I want the first name Satine uttered in live action. She deserves to be recognized. None of this would exist without Satine, and that's what is missing here.
Yeah, I think even Bo has been just saying my sister when referencing Satine. I don't think she's ever said her name.
But it's not just a sister. Her sister was the Duchess of Mandalore.
Yeah.
The place that is, hello, kind of the central figure planet of this whole show. Like,
I know.
Can we talk about the last true ruler?
Yeah, she was.
Before it all went to
She was the last official legitimate ruler who wasn't either usurping the position or appointed it by the emperor. So,
or a Sith.
yeah,
Like, what?
right. Seriously, holy shit.
So we should give a rundown for people who don't actually know who Satine and Bo actually are and how they have come to be in this timeline at all.
Yeah. So we don't know. They've never said their names, of the names of their parents officially.
Right.
They've never mentioned a mother ever in canon. They have said that they had a father in The Mandalorian, but I don't even think they mentioned Satine's father in the Clone Wars. I don't know how I learned this, but her father was assassinated. That's what I think.
Well, doesn't that just make sense?
Yeah, right. He died, quote, defending Mandalore, but now I'm not really sure if it's canon or not that their father was the one who started the whole idea of pacifism, but maybe that was just something that Satine did on her own. But either way, She rightfully inherited the throne when her father died.
And Satine is the oldest, right?
Yes.
She's the oldest sister, and Bo is the little sister.
Yes, and
then there's another.
There's possibly a brother.
A brother.
There might be another sister, but I've heard rumors of a brother, which we've talked about in a previous episode, that when we were talking about Corky.
Oh, jeez.
Because Corky is not Satine's nor Bo's son, because they both call him a nephew.
That we know of.
Right. Like, exactly. That was our whole episode, was whether or not Corky was a Kenobi or not. So if you haven't listened to that, check it out. That's that's still, to this day, one of our most popular episodes.
Very true. Very true. But here we are. I mean, it's so funny. I mean, we have to reference The Mandalorian while we talk about this, because things keep coming out that go back to the Clone Wars. You know, Satine was executed by Maul in front of Obi-Wan, and Bo sweeps in, and it's kind of this, she is a terrorist, she's in the terrorist group with what, Pre Vizsla? I hate his name.
I know, he's such a smarmy guy.
What's post Vizsla? Like, who's post Vizsla? Like, so Pre Vizsla and his gang and of people that they employ Maul to take over Mandalore. It's a terrible idea. It was terrible from the start.
And Bo even tried to tell him it was a terrible idea.
But she went along with it.
I know. So this is why when people are like, she's such a I love her so much. It's like, you haven't watched Clone Wars. You haven't watched it.
Yeah.
Because if you did, you might have a different opinion. And it's not that I dislike her necessarily now, but when I was watching Clone Wars, I did not like her the first time I watched it, because she is the reason Satine dies.
Yes. Which is, it's so ironic, because Satine was a pacifist and didn't want fighting. Yeah. She didn't want that kind of Mandalore, and yet her sister, God. And obviously, or maybe not so obviously, this will lead to the further character development of Bo-Katan through the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems to be going that direction. But yeah, she's not great in the Clone Wars for a lot of reasons, but number one, because she plays a pretty heavy hand in her sister's death.
What I read said that she joined Death Watch very young.
Yeah.
And separated herself basically from the House of Kryze because Satine was promoting pacifism. I think Katie was even saying this, right? Katie Sackhoff was saying that Satine was a politician and Bo was raised to be a warrior. So when Satine decided that she didn't want warriors, Bo was like, well, what about me? Don't I exist? So she joined the Death Watch, and Katie was saying that we never really realized how young Bo is in the Clone Wars. Yeah. So she was impressionable, she was young, she made mistakes that she later regrets.
That's good.
But those are devastating mistakes, and she makes them over and over.
Too late.
Yes, seriously.
Like,
too little, too late.
Your sister's dead, so...
And that whole planet they were walking through in episode 3, the city burned to the ground, all the Bo is standing there all like, oh, this was once a great city. It's like, it got destroyed kind of because of you. Just saying.
Yes. And I had an issue with, although it was cheeky and kind of like, oh, a throwback, when I had issue when she mentioned to Grogu, you know, I used to fight side by side with Jedi before. You swooped the in and got Kenobi out of there after he had to witness the death of your sister that you had a hand in causing.
You also fought side by side with a Sith, no problem. So
right.
So
if you're gonna go the length of saying I fought side by side with a Jedi, you know, go ahead and say you fought side by side with a Sith or two.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say she. She was part of a group that gathered a bunch of crime syndicates together.
Yes.
I mean, this is some dirty galactic shit in the grand scheme of things. And then, of course, we can go into Rebels, which we need to, because it eventually comes all the way back around to everyone. What is it? What's his name? He gets the Darksaber.
The Moff Gideon?
Not quite him yet. He's
Gar
the one that...
Saxon?
That's it, Saxon.
I was like, let me go back in time. Next step back.
Yeah, so like Sabine's clan, you got to understand this about Mandalorians if you don't. They're messy. They're always fighting. The clans are always against each other.
Yeah.
Which is what Satine was trying to prevent.
Yeah. It was all civil war, one right after another. They just kept having them.
Bo eventually gets the Darksaber from who? Sabine?
Yeah. She accepts it. Yeah.
She accepts it. And that's what leads us to the Mandalorian, where she won't accept it from Din because of her past of accepting it. And this long line of terrible, tragic things that happened in the Clone Wars and Rebels.
Well, and she says something to Sabine in Rebels about not killing somebody. Remember they made that weapon called the Duchess that Sabine helped create? That was like, if you're wearing Mandalorian armor, it would basically disintegrate you, right? And so Sabine felt angry that they used her technology, and so she was going to kill the person, the empirical guy who was responsible or whoever. I don't remember it exactly. But Bo says something like, it's not an honorable killing. And it's like, when did honor start mattering to you? Like, the Mandalorians are all about this honor and code, but like Pre Vizsla, who is one of the children of the Watch or whatever Din is a part of, they're like an offshoot of Death Watch, okay? So they're like a more extreme version of Death Watch, and Death Watch was making these deals with Maul and Savage Opress, knowing they were going to double cross them. They were using the Sith on purpose with the intention of killing them once they had achieved their goals. And they achieved their goals with trickery by making a false invasion of Mandalore so that they could overthrow Satine. So when the did honor, like real honor, become a thing for the Mandalorians? Well,
I want to pose the question of, if it's for your home planet, what length is too far before honor turns into just whatever the that was you just described? Because that's, to me, not honorable.
Yeah.
But in their mind, it's like any person who fights for the Empire, any person who fights for the rebellion. They think they're doing the right thing for the cause.
Right.
But do the means justify the end? No, because Mandalore ended up getting blown up anyway by the Empire.
Right. Exactly. Everything they did. It's kind of like, we talked about it before, isn't it? Oedipus, who is supposed to like kill his father. So he leaves to avoid killing his father. And ultimately that leads him back to a stranger on the road who is his father that he kills or something like that. It's the same thing with Mandalore. It's like, no matter what you do, you're going to end up in this whole mess.
Totally. And so today we present to you the question, how in the do you get a pacifist and a fighter turned terrorist turned redeemed terrorist?
Yeah. Savior of Mandalore?
One clan. Yeah. And you made the point. We could even do it based off of looks. They don't look the same. Now, a lot of sisters and brothers come from the same family. And one may be blonde and one may be dark-haired.
Sure.
You know, skip a generation, skip a line, whatever. But like, holy shit, are they opposite? It makes me wonder, did it drive them further into their roles to spite one another? I mean, we don't know. We don't know what the relationship was like.
No, and well, there's one line where Satine said, there was a time when we weren't enemies. Not that we were friends, but that we weren't enemies. And like maybe that time is coming again. And Bo's response is, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And I was like, that's also not the same as like, hey, we're friends, let's get along.
I'm a single child. I'm an only child. I don't know what it's like to have sibling rivalry, but my best friend from my childhood was the middle sister of 3 girls. Mm-hmm. And I watched them fight over clothing, hair accessories, the pettiest shit, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure anyone out there, you come from a family of multiple siblings.
Yeah.
It's natural.
It was brutal growing up. We're all friends now, but that doesn't always happen. Like, that's rare, actually, I think, when you grow up and become friends. In my family, my sisters and I are very close, but
which I love, by the way. I love that.
I do too. It's special. I know it's not that common, so I feel like we're really lucky to still get along. But yeah, it was a bloodbath growing up.
Do you think that Bo and Satine had such opposite views because of, were they in these roles before the father died, or did the father's death drive them to take totally opposite points of view?
That's a great question.
You could take a parental death and be like, you know what, I'm going to fight to the end. He tried to defend Mandalore. I'm always going to defend Mandalore. So you have Bo. Mm-hmm. But then the parent dies, and you have Satine is like, you know what, fighting solves nothing. So I'm going to take the role of a pacifist.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Where the hell is the mother? Who is the mother?
I know.
What is the mother?
Who is Corky?
Where the is Corky in all of this? Where's the brother?
I know.
I can't.
Do you want to hear my theory?
Of course I do.
On Bo. So,
yes.
A long time ago.
In a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
So, we all know that Dave Filoni wanted Anna Graves to kind of reference Cate Blanchett's performance in Elizabeth, right?
Yes, right.
Satine is kind of based on Queen Elizabeth and Cate Blanchett's version in particular. And there's this interview that Filoni gave. I found it on IGN, and I've heard this before. I've heard him say this stuff in an interview before. Originally, Bo was not supposed to be Satine's sister in the script. That was not the intention.
Okay.
So Dave is the one who put that in there. George Lucas did not intend it that way. And so Dave is the one who changed that altogether. And he said he waited until like production was done and snuck it in there and then showed it to George and was like, eh? You like it?
Is this okay?
Yeah, exactly. And he liked it, so they kept it in. But then Dave said, I'm going to read from an interview with IGN that he gave. He said, I have a rather lengthy backstory that even explains how she became a Death Watch soldier that goes all the way back to the time when she and Satine are 6. Because to figure out how she got to that point, and yet Satine is a duchess, like, they're not remotely on the same page. He says, I have a whole story about who their father was and what their relationships were and everything with Vizsla going back for a very long time and how that intersects with Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Ooh. And we don't have this yet?
No, and he said, I'd give you more detail, except I'd like to tell that story at some point in some form of Star Wars media in the future.
All right.
And he said he's discussed it with people at Lucasfilm, and they have, like, plans for it.
I see you, Dave. You cheeky man in your little hat. I'm ready. Tell us another story.
So, if he's basing Satine on Queen Elizabeth, I wonder if he's basing Bo on Princess Mary and that they do not have the same mother.
Oh.
I wonder if Bo was the result of a concubine or a mistress.
A tryst?
Mm-hmm. And like in Henry VIII's experience, those daughters became legitimate queens even though they came in and out of favor. So for a while, they were, whenever it was convenient, they'd be called a bastard child and cast out. And then the real king died and they needed somebody, so they brought in one of the bastards.
I like this theory because that would create constant discord between them.
Yes.
You have a different mother and you're not my real sister. And
right.
The impartiality between the father and both of them, maybe trying to keep the peace between the half-sisters and stuff. Yeah, I could tell. This is great. I like this theory.
Because also with Henry VIII, he loved Mary until he married Anne Boleyn, and then he loved Elizabeth, but also kind of didn't because she wasn't a boy. and so, like, each girl kept feeling like they were being replaced over and over, depending on what was happening. And so I was wondering if, like, Bo was the apple of his eye for martial stuff, like learning to fight. And Satine was very smart and learning politics and becoming savvy that way. And it was just like, then he dies prematurely and the sisters are never reconciled. And Bo could have been raised in another household because she had a different mother.
True.
Which would explain why she has a totally different accent. Doesn't sound anything like Satine or Corky.
Right.
That's my theory.
Hey, It's a good one. It stands.
It's purely conjecture, but it makes sense, I guess, if you think about it.
When you put it like you did, it kind of, connects a few dots anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be as simple as, Satine looks like her mom and Bo looks like her dad, but, that's why they look so different.
We don't have any material, so this is what we're left with. But if Filoni tells the story sometime, it'll be worth it, I think.
How does Pre Vizsla and Bo tie back to Obi-Wan? Like, if we're talking about when Satine and Bo were 6 years old, and then somehow this all ties in with the Jedi, what?
Does it have to do with when him and Qui-Gon helped Satine?
It could. I mean, Filoni, I'm sure, has his own idea of what happened during that year on the run. Maybe
we already have that story, and it's called The Jedi and His Duchess, so... Sorry, Filoni, it's been written already. Bye, Lauren. It even has artwork, okay?
It has legit. A book cover. Yes, it's real.
Does. This is all fun to think of. We're getting more than I ever thought we would with any of the Kryzes right now. I mean, Satine made her mark for any Obi-Wan fan.
Yeah.
And Bo is just kind of like an addition to the story and a mysterious character. And then we got more in Rebels that kind of tied it a little bit together, and she was a little bit redeemed. And that was kind of like book closed. And now she's brought back into The Mandalorian. She's becoming more of a well-rounded character as opposed to like a figure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so we have to start thinking about these things if we haven't been already.
I think it's really interesting. It's fun to watch her character develop. And now, like, seeing her in live action is pretty watching Katie Sackhoff, like, bring it to life is awesome.
Yes. Yeah, I probably would like it less if it was someone other than Katie Sackhoff.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
How many out there have a crush on her, no matter what gender you are? Raise a hand.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep, hand raised.
Love her.
So, pretty universally accepted that she's amazing. So
she is. She's just one of those people that, like, is very captivating to watch her. And even in, like, interviews, she's so interesting. And I love her fashion. I love her glasses. Yeah. I love everything.
She's knowledgeable. She's fun.
Yeah.
She enjoys the role. I love anyone who enjoys what they do because I don't know anything about that. But, in their career or whatever. But something interesting that I brought up to you about The Mandalorian is when we see Satine lounging. I'm sorry, not Satine. Oops. When we see Bo lounging on her throne.
Yes.
I couldn't help but notice the almost immediate contrast of everything about her castle compared to Satine's castle. And I have pictures up to reference. If you type in Bo-Katan Castle and you type in Satine Kryze Castle, you're going to see the complete inverse of each other. And I don't know if it was on purpose, but I told you when I first saw the episode, I just, Din and Grogu are walking down this concrete castle hallway with small glass windows. Mm-hmm. Let's start there. Satine, okay, it's not her castle, but it's the Sundari Royal Palace, right?
Right.
It is all windows with tiny metal pieces keeping them together. Mm-hmm. So, Satine, bright, open, peaceful, airy, sunlight, okay?
Yep.
Satine, closed off, cold,
Bo.
dark. Bo, Jesus. Well, not Jesus, but Bo. Bo is cold, cement, closed off, very little light.
Yeah.
Hard. Okay?
Yeah.
You see what's happening here? That was the first thing. Then when I typed it in and looked, if you look at the actual throne seat and the steps that lead up to it, if you look at Satine's throne, it's steps leading up to a narrow column. Mm-hmm. Bo's is a narrow column leading down to inverted stairs. So it's a V shape.
Oh.
Which is the exact opposite of Satine's, which is like an A shape.
That's so interesting.
I don't know why, but for some reason it stuck out in my head as like, they completely inverted everything about Satine's castle and made it Bo's castle.
Yeah, that's so cool though. I mean, and think about it, like the stone, the concrete, that's like historic, like history and old tradition, and Satine is glass. It's like modern, progressive.
Exactly. And so we have kind of the old Mandalorian, everybody fights, everybody's at war, everybody da-da-da-da-da, Bo.
Yeah.
Then we have the peaceful, airy, light, sunny, new way, modern era Satine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And both are blown up. So what difference does it make?
Exactly. Like, that's the thing. Like, maybe the whole point is being too extreme in either direction is a problem.
Again, the theme of balance comes forward in A Tale of Star Wars. It's just, I was sad to see her castle go because it looked like a magnificent place to watch the ocean.
God, I want to live there, man. That is like my dream castle.
I would turn the heat up. It seemed, light a candle, Bo.
See, and what the is she doing all day long? Just sitting?
She's thinking about things.
Yeah, she's
thinking about how she caused the fucking death of her sister. I would close myself off too on a island somewhere.
I love too that she's supposed to be like sitting on furs, but she's like still in her armor. They're like, girl, go put some pajamas on. Relax.
Get a diffuser. Light a candle, take your helmet off, put on a face mask, have some self-care, and just put the past in the past.
Yeah. God. She's always just lounging on that throne.
I mean, she looked cool doing it.
She looks great, but she literally, I just thought it was really funny that it looked like she hadn't moved in the time that Grogu and Din were there, and then Grogu comes back, and it's like, she is not getting up. She's just living in that chair.
I kind of get it. I mean, when the world of Mandalore and your entire family rests on your back, and you lost the Darksaber to the dude walking towards you.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be a little, what do you want? You know, like, like the Anzellan. What do you want? You know, when the little Babu freak dude.
Oh
was
my
it
God.
Babu?
I think so.
Or was it somebody? Was it Babu? Okay.
I think so. Those
Babu is the real MVP here. So, so those were just some things that I don't know why it stuck out to me so obviously, but maybe it was meant to, maybe it wasn't, maybe it was purposeful, maybe it wasn't. I mean, it was just too much of a contrast to not notice.
Exactly.
So if you pay attention to the Clone Wars anyways, if you don't, it's just another castle, you know?
Right, exactly. But I said this to you, I noticed right away, she's laying in the throne like Maul was laying in Satine's throne. And I'm sure there's memes everywhere now, but...
Well, you were not the only one. I got, I think, 2 DMs on Twitter saying, like, did you see the latest episode? What'd you think? Did you notice she was lounging like Maul?
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, Lauren told me that. I didn't notice it, but you did. And it's like, there's just too many similarities, you know?
At first I thought like Maul was actually gonna be there. For some reason my brain was thinking, did he like sneak into Bo's castle?
Surprise!
Yeah, because he always
she called me back.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was very interesting. I want to see more of her castle, but now it's gone.
Yeah, I know. And so's the other one. So Satine and Bo are sisters. I don't know how, but they are. We have theories.
It would really be interesting to see their childhood. I would be interested to see Satine and Bo's history somehow.
Here's my only caveat. I want Obi-Wan's childhood first. I don't want to get Bo and Satine's childhood before we get Obi-Wan's.
Yeah, that's true.
And that is my bias showing.
I don't care though. Like, for being one of the most popular characters, Obi-Wan is still treated a bit like a side character.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't get it. And I don't even mean necessarily by the fandom. I feel like Star Wars has ignored him until this year. Finally, they're making the Obi-Wan show, you know, and that was a big deal. And I think they finally realized how crazy people are about the character.
Totally.
Yeah.
There's more intrigue with Obi-Wan than there is Anakin. We know a lot about Anakin. We know a lot about his childhood. We know about his end. We know everything in between. Obi-Wan is a little bit mysterious. He had a relationship. Or did he? We don't even know. And he had it with Bo-Katan's sister, who died because of Bo-Katan. There's your wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of like at the center of all their drama, which is weird. Like, especially
It's
now that
so
we're
weird.
getting this big look at Mandalore. I was just re-listening to our episode about Corky because I was kind of like wanted to hear it a little bit before we recorded. And you were saying, like, why wouldn't Satine tell Obi-Wan? And one of my reasons was because she wanted to protect him from the Jedi. Like, what if Corky was force sensitive, right? And
It's true.
then it just hit me, like, having seen all this drama with the Mandalorians, what if Obi-Wan is the father of Corky? He's half Mandalorian, half Jedi. That would be like the start of a whole... Can you imagine a bunch of force-sensitive Mandalorians?
No, this is a disaster.
It would be a...
Stop.
That's the last thing we need right now.
Isn't
God.
that what Grogu is essentially going to be? Half Mandalorian, half Jedi?
I guess, because... I don't know, because Din was adopted and he's not a born
True.
Mandalorian. I don't know if you have
True.
to be... I mean, for a group that takes blood very seriously, they sure will take Strazed, too. So I don't know. It's...
Maybe this is all just to rewrite what Mandalore was into what Mandalore needs to be if it's going to survive. What does the word Mandalore even mean anymore? Maybe we're seeing what it means now play out. I don't know.
That's a good question. One that we do not have an answer to yet, but if we know Dave Filoni, we will have one in about 7 years.
Yes. See you then.
Next week, we are going to discuss The Mandalorian Season 3. We think it ties in pretty good to what we just talked about since we did a little bit of chit-chat about Mandalorian today. We will discuss episodes 1, 2, 3, and
possibly 4 if we can fit it in.
Maybe 4 if we can squeeze it into our recording schedule. So join us back here for that.
Thank you so much for joining us here on the Most Things Kenobi podcast. We appreciate every single one of our patrons and are grateful for your support. If you would like to support the podcast and become a patron as well, head over to the Most Things Kenobi Patreon. And as always, you can follow us on Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast player. And if you enjoy our podcast, go ahead, feel free to rate us on Spotify and Apple. We appreciate that as well. If you need just one place to find all of these individual things, you can find them over at mostthingskenobi.com.
So until next time, my space twin, may the Force be with you.
Always.